Hello everyone, and welcome to Noodle Journey, your destination for in-depth reviews of the instant noodle universe. And today's review is a bit of a follow-up to my last Buldak review as I work my way through the remaining Buldak products in my queue. This is Samyang Buldak Rosé with wide glass noodles. Real quick, before I get into this review, please like, share, and subscribe. And check out the description for all my social media links and the link to the official website, noodlejourney.net, where you will find even more reviews that you won't see here on YouTube. So now, this is the third variation on Buldak Rosé that I'm trying, following the version sold in South Korea back in episode 90, and then most recently the version exported to the US from South Korea in episode 222. I love the original Korean version with its smoky bacon notes, and I didn't love the US version as much because the smoky bacon notes kind of turned into smoky mustard notes, at least to my palate, due to a recipe change for an export market. Feel free to watch both of those reviews right now and then come back to this one if you want additional context to anything I just said. I have also had these same glass noodles before, back in episode 173 with the Buldak Mala bowl, and they were not my favorite texture, although I can see why some people might love them. So I already know what to expect from the noodles in here, but what I really want to glean from this review and pass on to you is this rosé sauce in here closer to the original Korean recipe that I loved, or is it closer to the newer American recipe, and how does it work in the context of these wide glass noodles? You might say, wait, shouldn't the sauce be identical to the US version? No, it's actually not. And in fact, the mala glass noodle sauce recipe was very different from the mala packed version, and the ingredients on the back of this label here do not match what I reviewed in episode 222. So I'm nothing if not thorough with my reviews. You can buy this anywhere that sells Buldak, and sometimes you'll find the version from Korea with Hangul on the bowl in places like H Mart. But as you'll see in a second, those might be one and the same with this. So let's look inside. I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so now you might see what I'm talking about. Despite the fact that there is English all over the outside of this, including the bowl, all the inside packages are in Korean, with the exception of the word rosé. Now, this makes me assume that this is the same as what's sold in Korea, just repackaged for the American market, but maybe not quite. More on that in a minute. So in here you've got the glass noodles, we've got a sauce packet, and 2 powder packets. And yes, this is normal. This is not an accident. These glass noodles are made from potato starch, cornstarch, and rice flour, which gives them a very, very chewy texture. The noodles themselves also contain a dairy-based creamer, something you don't see very often. Now, the sauce is a variant of the original Buldak sauce recipe, containing things like soy sauce, sugar, chili pepper, onion, and garlic. But there's a lot of spices in the sauce not found in the US pack version of rosé. Like there's a curry powder containing cumin, cloves, nutmeg, rosemary, paprika, laurel, sage, and ginger. There's also no cheese in the sauce, like in the US pack version. The powder packets are where you're going to find the cheese, milk, creamer, all that kind of stuff. So there's mozzarella and cheddar in here, parsley, basil, and garlic. If you buy the version of this bowl sold in South Korea, I was able to track down an image of the ingredients. There's no mention of curry powder on that, but there is real chicken extract listed, which is not present on this label. And to add further confusion, what's on the ingredients label in this bowl does not match what's listed on Samyang America's product page for this bowl. So that means there must be at least 3 different versions of this recipe out there. The sodium for this particular recipe is 1130 milligrams for the entire bowl. Now, so let me assemble this, but I am going to give you a warning. The problem with these packets being in Korean, if you don't read Korean and don't translate the text on the noodles with something like Google Lens, you would miss that there is an alcohol preservative in these noodles. So you will smell it when you open these. The alcohol cooks off, so don't worry, the smell goes away. The reason I mention this is there was someone on Reddit a couple months ago who got downvoted into oblivion for throwing the noodles in the trash, thinking they had spoiled because of the alcohol smell. Don't throw them away. The alcohol smell is normal, okay? So there's a little pull tab right here. Let's see how well this works. Pretty easy. All right. Ooh, that is a strong smell. So you can kind of see the gauge of these noodles right now. They're a little stuck together. They'll loosen up as they cook if they're anything like the mala version. Now we'll put in the sauce. And the sauce is a little thick, probably because I had this stored in a slightly cool place. If you ever come across something like this where it's a little thicker than it feels like it should be, run it under some warm water before you squeeze it out. But I'm just going to cut this and get it out of the pouch right here. Oh, you know what? I forgot to smell it. Yep. Smells like typical Buldak sauce. I know that curry powder is in the ingredients. It doesn't really come through when you smell it, at least not to me. Definitely comes through when I taste it, at least in the original recipe. All right, and despite my best efforts, I still got sauce on my fingers. I'll go clean that off. To cook this, you're going to add hot water up to the fill line, microwave for 2.5 minutes, and then add the powder packets right after that. Yes, I'm aware this looks like a turd. Feel free to make whatever jokes you want in the comments. I will be right back after I cook this. Okay, so this is what it looks like out of the microwave. 2.5 minutes, really fast, pretty convenient cooking time. As you can see, there's not a lot of liquid left, which is cool. Makes me have high hopes for how thick this sauce is going to get. Let's put in the powder packets. Very cheesy funk to that. All right, and here we go with the final stir. All right, so as you can hopefully see, the sauce has thickened better than the pack version did, which I'm not surprised. 2 powder packets with not a lot of water. Makes sense, right? I will draw your attention to one of the main reasons I don't love these noodles, at least not in the mala bowl. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here, and maybe they cooked up a little better. But they kind of stick together, as you can see here. And that's a lot of thickness for a single bite, in my opinion. Right, but with all that being said, this does smell nice and cheesy. Good Buldak aroma from it, mixed with that cheese powder. Let's give this a try. All right. Noodle score first. When I had these in the mala bowl, I thought they were too thick and chewy, a little bit gummy. I didn't like that they were very hard to separate. My opinion hasn't really changed since then. If you already like this style of noodle, you'll probably think that this is an excellent example, but as a personal preference for me, I like a wheat noodle or potato noodle that is just not this level of thickness or gauge in this shape. So, not for me, but not objectively bad either. So I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10 for the noodle score. Now for the spiciness score. The US pack version, I gave a 5 out of 10. For a Buldak product, I thought it was less spicy than you'd expect. This one, though, brings the heat back up to where I scored the original South Korean version. So it's a notch spicier than something like Shin Ramyun, in my opinion, but it is still lacking the more intense spice of the original hot chicken flavor, or even the carbonara flavor for that matter. So I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10 for spiciness. All right, so let's talk about the overall score. Samyang's rosé sauce in the packs is intended to be a creamy, smoky, spicy concoction. And like I talked about earlier, the Korean pack version had a really great subtle bacon flavor, while the US pack version went off in kind of a more mustard-like direction. And this one, this bowl, much to my delight, actually evokes the Korean version, where the smoky flavor is more authentic. It tastes more like a little bit of bacon in a cream sauce, and that's combined with the typical combination of savory and sweet and smoky that you get from most Buldak flavors. There's maybe a little subtle herb note of the curry powder. It's very hard to detect for me. I do get a lot of the parsley flavor. I think that's great. Either way, there's an extra layer of depth to this sauce that I found to be missing from the American pack version. And there's a lot of creaminess and cheesiness, thanks to the fact that there's a double powder packet in here, which made the sauce thicken up incredibly nicely. Something that the US pack version also was not able to do properly. What else to say? Oh yeah, to all those folks who insist there's a tomato flavor to this, I once again have to inform you there is no tomato in here. That's this weird thing that people on Reddit keep repeating about the rosé sauce. There's no tomato in it. I promise. Read the ingredients. But look, either way, this is close to the same sauce recipe that I loved back in episode 90, but just with these noodles that I kind of don't love. You know? I'm torn, because flavor-wise, this is great. Consistency-wise, the sauce, also great. But I just find the noodle texture to be too chewy. And very unevenly cooked, I might add. I don't think the microwave really cooks these all to exactly the same tenderness. So if I was scoring this purely on flavor and heat, this would be an easy 9.5 out of 10 overall. But I have to factor in the noodles. So the sauce is good enough that I can mostly overlook my issues with the noodles. So I think this is worth an overall score of an 8 out of 10. If you don't share my opinion of the noodles, if you like these kind of noodles more than I do, you might score this even higher. I really wish that this sauce recipe was what was in the US pack version, but at least in this bowl, it exists here in the US in some form. So that was really interesting, and I think this whole review, if you're going to take anything away from it, just highlights some of the unexpected differences when Asian noodle products are reformulated for export markets. I wasn't sure which way this recipe would go, but I'm glad that there's an example of one of my favorite Buldak flavors now being easily available outside of South Korea, even if the noodles are not my favorite. If you like everything you saw in this review, you should definitely try this and see what you think. If you're a Buldak fan who has to try everything and you've already had the US pack version of rosé, you have to put this on your list to try because it's a different recipe. And if you're a certified Buldak fanatic, then try this one side by side with the pack version at the same meal and see which one you prefer. It would be a fun experiment. Let me know what you think in the comments. And speaking of comments, I hope you're not Buldaked out yet. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you are. I am trying to walk a line here between popular stuff like Buldak mixed in with more varied other products. There are still a few Buldak products in the review pile, believe it or not, including some very interesting imports. And there's a brand new flavor that just got spotted at Walmart like 2 days ago. But I will be back with something not Buldak in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you here again on Noodle Journey.